the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Hello and welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Sort of. Minus Pat Mayo, I guess. I'm Garion Thorne. You might know me from prior episodes of the Pat Mayo Experience. Pat, obviously, away due to the birth of his son. We want to congratulate Pat, obviously, and his wife. Great news. No reason for him to be here talking about positional sleepers for the 2019 baseball season. But that's not to downgrade the importance of positional sleepers for the 2019 fantasy baseball season. I'm excited, and so is Chris Meaney.
I am.
Of The Athletic and Fantrax.
Yes.
Chris, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
As always, man. Always fun to talk baseball with you.
Always, yes.
It's been a while since we've gotten to do it consistently.
Yes,
so.
this is our third show, and I've already learned so much from you, man. I was excited. Pat, take a seat back, relax with your family. Congratulations. Yes.
I'm curious, and you as an East Coast guy can maybe speak to this a little bit. Do you think their parents are worried that two East Coast people are having a baby, not just in Ontario, but directly in the center of downtown Toronto?
The center of Toronto.
Just gonna take it's like the kid already has no Halifax.
No,
it's just gone.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but they'll make some trips out east. They'll be home plenty. So
maybe the what's the thing that spins on the ceiling called? The
like a fan? No,
there's like the you know the thing that like you hang it down and it kind of has like fun shapes and colors and it's above the crib.
Oh, yes. I don't know the name for it. Yeah,
but just
clearly
you
and
I
make
it don't air.
Yeah,
we're
not on that level. Yeah, we're talking about
adults.
sleepers in January.
Yeah.
So I can't help you there.
Again, though, fun names.
Yeah,
some fun names to talk about.
I'm pretty excited about.
And kind of just looking through our lists. So we each got 5 guys.
Yep.
One thing that I thought was really interesting. We talked about pitchers in a different episode. Some young guys, skewed a little young. Injuries and young was kind of the theme of that particular episode. Also, Anibal Sanchez.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's fine. Not everything has to fit. This is a lot of like, hey, maybe you guys should be paying attention to this guy who used to be a prospect but didn't quite make it, or this veteran player who we're maybe sleeping on because he's boring or
one
something.
Of the best hitters of all time.
That too. So before we get into the specifics of what our sleepers are, I want to remind everybody that if they want to get in on the fun, really, of naming positional sleepers for the 2019 fantasy baseball season, what you have to do is leave a comment below this video. And not only will you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're imparting wisdom, sleeper wisdom upon the public, but your name will be put into a DK draw for $20 DK. So, like the episode, obviously you're going to. You love fantasy baseball talk. Then leave your handle in your comment and tell us who your favorite positional sleeper for the 2019 season is going to be. If you don't have any inkling as to who that might be, we're going to tell you.
Yeah,
Here are some of the guys that we like. The big one, you've written about him.
Yeah, start with him.
Again, I want to push everyone towards The Athletic. Pay the $3.
Yeah.
It's worth it. Get behind the paywall. Read some of Chris's. You're going position by position with sleepers.
Position by position, yeah. And there's just tons of good stuff. Even if you don't like my opinion, like, come on, like, honestly, there's tons of great stuff and great writers.
It's like the fantasy section is amazing,
yeah.
and it's like
it's
the
just
smallest,
on the rise, really.
But it's also like the smallest section of The Athletic. It's not like you just get Athletic
right,
fantasy.
That's the thing.
You
like
get The Athletic.
Yeah, you're not paying the $3 for just fantasy baseball sleepers. You're paying the $3 for everything.
Yeah, like
everything on this.
Do you like Ken Rosenthal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pay $3.
Yeah.
Miguel Cabrera.
Yes.
Let's have the conversation. One name that keeps coming back into my mind, and it's a little scary because I was very wrong about this player last year, although did have an awesome September.
I keep on him again next year.
I keep seeing Miguel Cabrera, and his Fantrax ADP is 192. Not surprisingly, NFBC, where a little more money on the line.
A little more money.
Take it a little bit seriously.
Absolutely. Agreed.
A little bit sharper minds.
Agreed.
Our boy Rob Silver.
Yes.
Leading the charge. Baseball Prospectuses.
Yes.
Rob Silver. He's 163, so a little bit higher, about 2 rounds higher on NFBC drafts right now. I keep thinking about Adrian Beltre. And I really liked Adrian Beltre last season.
Me too.
And he was even a little bit more expensive than this. I think by the time, like late March rolled around, Beltre was like 110, 120. And I could see Cabrera following a very similar trajectory. I think that, especially if people start seeing him take swings in spring training games, maybe hits a home run, even just runs the bases.
Yeah.
People get excited. They'll remember he's Miguel Cabrera. They'll remember he's a Hall of Fame player, first ballot without question. But the one concerning thing I have, and to anybody who watched the top 20 breakdown, you'll know this is a big sticking point for me, but I'm willing to see past it for Miguel Cabrera, is his ground ball rate was scary last season.
Yeah, it was.
So that was up over 50% for the first time in his career. Now we're only talking about 157 plate appearances. So maybe small sample size noise, that could be part of this here. But 20.4% fly ball rate, which directly led to 3 home runs in those 157 plate appearances. Like, you know, you don't have to be a crazy mathematician to know that's 12 home runs across 600 plate appearances. Even if he hits 300, very possible.
Very possible. Because I think he hit 290.
Yeah, still hit 290 last year. Yeah. Also, still led the league in highest percentage of batted ball events above 95 miles per hour.
Yeah.
54.6% of the things that came off his bat above 95 miles per hour. He's still really good.
Yes, he is still really good.
But the launch angle is important.
It
was 7.3 degrees, which is not, like, if you look at Giancarlo Stanton and players of that ilk, like, we're talking 18, 19%, not percent, degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Barrels, super low, because, you know, you have to be within a certain parameter of launch angle, especially at Comerica. Like, if you're not getting the ball off the ground, are we willing, let's say it gets up to like 120. Are you now, because I think we're both perfectly content saying if Miguel Cabrera's on the board at 190,
love it.
You take him.
It's
no
he's
questions
like first
asked.
baseman 15.
Yeah. Like the other first baseman going in that range.
Yeah.
Luke Voigt, who I like.
Sure.
Like, look, I don't 100%, I think we've just assumed Greg Bird is not going to be on this roster next season, which might be right, but Luke Voigt's still
a good assumption.
Luke Voigt.
Yeah.
Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
Yuli Gurriel.
Oh,
These are guys
get into
constantly
Gurriel in a little bit, but yeah.
Like, meh.
Yeah, and those guys don't have the ceiling.
No.
That
not
Miggy has. And I mean, even if I don't think he's a 30 home run guy.
No.
But I wouldn't be shocked if he hit 25.
So
25 to 30, I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't be.
So 3 of the last 4 years, and 2 of those he was
he never
100%.
Ever went on the DL. And then he has
so
recently.
When I say 100% healthy, I don't necessarily mean 100% healthy. I mean he played most of the games.
Yeah.
3 of the last 4 years, sub 200 isolated power.
Yeah.
So even best case scenario, we're probably looking at like 20 home runs.
Yeah, the decline it's
Mickey.
here. It's coming.
But I think he still could hit 320. So 190.
And give you a great on base percentage still.
So 190, fine. I would even say 160, fine. If he does get up into that Beltre range where he's picked like 110, 120, are you willing to pay that price? Because it becomes very similar to Beltre, where Beltre, 300 hitter for his career, was still pretty good last season in terms of the batting average.
Yeah, he was.
But there was no power to
There was no power at all. He was hitting good average, and he just wasn't hitting home runs.
Is that worth 110? Like, can you take that risk?
Maybe not 110. And I don't know if maybe he will go that high because he's Miggy. And like you said, if he does have a good spring, people will be in on him. But my thing is, I just don't like first base this year.
No.
I really don't. I mean, I like
last
the first
couple years
few.
Too, very quietly.
Yeah,
been a
it's
bad position.
slowly starting to, because there's always been some guys that you can take near the end, and we get excited about CJ Crones, like those guys. Like at least I got excited about those guys.
We'll actually talk about CJ Crones a little bit.
But for the first base position, I mean, if you miss out on the first couple guys, you're better off waiting it out. And even if you wait it out, there's not a lot of greatness at this position. It's one of the weaker ones, and I'm not excited about it at all. But if I'm going to get a guy in Miggy who's going to go outside the top 12 at first base, and if I'm not playing with quarter infield spots and I'm in a 12-team league and I'm going to get Miggy in round 15 plus, I'm going to take him.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get a guy in that range that's going to give me around a 290 average and an on base percentage is going to be solid and maybe potentially hit me. Yeah, the decline is for real, and the ground ball percentage is 100% concerning for me.
But like you said, batting average, like we talk about how quickly stolen bases kind of fall off after the initial few rounds. Yeah. Batting average gets scary.
Oh my goodness, especially
after a certain
position.
point. Now you can go out and get like, I mean, I don't even really. I guess John Jay comes to mind. He'll hit 270 for you.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything else.
Nothing else.
So Miggy at least has the ceiling and the potential to kind of go across all 5 categories. Well, not 5, 4 categories,
4
possibly.
categories.
Yeah, I'm worried about the price increase just because of the name value.
Yeah.
And I will say I don't hate Luke Voigt. So if Miggy gets way too high, I think I'm still kind of
I think
content
Voigt's a good target.
waiting on him because actually second place in terms of batted ball events over 95 miles per hour, Luke Voigt. So yeah, that's kind of how first base shakes down to me. But I think we can both agree if he's going outside the top 150, top 175, just take a chance.
I mean,
on Miggy.
first base 15 is where he stands right now on Fantrax, and like we said, there's a little bit of difference on other sites, and he probably will. It's January, but I mean, first base 15 is, I think it's a steal, and I think it's one of the best steals in the draft to get somebody that can give you a solid average alone, just not hurt you.
So let's talk about what's really on everyone, the tip of everyone's tongue. It doesn't matter if they're baseball fans or not. Everyone's talking about the San Diego Padres outfield. It's really just
everybody.
It's the talk of the town. So we both identified guys we like, and they're very similar players. And it doesn't surprise me that your guy Hunter Renfroe is about 30 spots higher than Franmil Reyes, because Renfroe, I think there's still some name value. Everyone remembers. Was it 3 years ago now that he was like
he tore up
their
PCL,
top prospect, tore up the PCL.
PCL, whatever, but he
But,
still tore it
yeah,
up.
everyone still kind of shrugs the PCL thing, but that's fair. We knew that, but still.
At least he still did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So also 2 very similar players, and this is what maybe worries me a little bit, in that you might just have to pick one.
Yeah.
Because right now the Padres have both of those guys. They also have Franchy Cordero. They have Will Myers, who they can't stick anywhere else because they paid Eric Hosmer $1 billion.
Yep.
And they also still have Jankowski.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of outfielders. There's no DH in the National League. It might be tough for them to both find consistent at-bats. And then you go, okay, well, is there a platoon situation on the horizon? They both crush lefties.
Yeah.
So they're kind of the same guy.
There.
But if you asked me who I think was going to win the job, I'd have to think Hunter Renfroe has the inside track, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The strikeouts have been an issue for him over the past couple of years, but last season the strikeouts declined slightly. Mm-hmm. Still to the point, I believe, where they're still around 26%, which
but that's
is still
not
pretty
terrible.
high. But
it was like 33.
Least, yeah, right. At least there was a decline, and the walks increased. There's no question he has tremendous power. I mean, 256 ISO, 47 hard hit rate, 44 fly ball percentage. I mean, that's just not 1 year. If you go back to his 2 seasons, have basically been identical. 26 home runs in year 1, 26 home runs in year 2. And since the start of 2017, the ISO is 240. That's 20th in baseball among guys who have had 800 plate appearances. The fly ball percentage is 44, which is 24th among guys who have 800 plate appearances. So, I mean, probably the better prospect.
Definitely the more touted.
Prospect.
I would agree.
I thought we were going to come in here and butt heads a little bit more, but you're giving Renfroe already the benefit of the doubt.
I just think that when you look at it, purely from an outsider's perspective, and you didn't know any better, you were just like, okay, you've got a guy who's been one of your organization's top prospects for the last 5 years. He's been one of your, not everyday players, but 550, 600 plate appearances the last 2 seasons. He's been all right.
Yeah.
And he's still 26 years old. And you go, okay, this guy's fighting for a job against someone who's very similar. Also a ton of power.
A ton of, you're right.
Reyes in the second half, 180 plate appearances, a 394 WOBA. Did have a 50% ground ball rate. So sort of in the vein of Miguel Cabrera, you'd like to see his batted ball profile be a little bit more inclined towards using that power.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's hard to look at this and go, what, you're going to send Renfroe to the minors? I mean,
he already spent too much time there. Yeah. There's nothing else for him to
Reyes
PLC
could probably go to the minors.
Right. I mean, we joke about the PCL league and 50 home runs, but he tore up that league with, I think he was top 5 in hits. He flirted with a 300 average.
Yeah.
I mean, just to see the strikeouts, and I don't even know, Garion, if he has had a full season because he's dealt with some injuries. Last year there were some injuries, and I think it was just over 460 plate appearances. Maybe I haven't even seen the full season yet. Give this guy 600, and he's hitting 30.
And I mentioned this in a prior podcast about just how lefty laden this particular division is.
Yeah.
And for both these guys, they mash lefties. Reyes at a 181 WRC plus last season. Renfroe very similar, might have even been better actually. This might be me creating a narrative, but I want to say towards the end of the season, and Renfroe had, I think it was 18 home runs in the second half last year. He was starting to hit right-handed pitching better. He wasn't hitting it like he was hitting left-handed pitching, but it was just better across the board. A 288 isolated power in the second half. The strikeout rate went down even farther to 23.1%.
Positive.
I mean, we don't live in a era of baseball anymore where we say like, oh, age 27 season, it's happening, but maybe it's happening.
Maybe it is. Like you said, 26. Some people will say that the power will even come as late as 28, 29. But for him being 26 years old and, like I said, 26 home runs in each of his first 2 seasons and adjusting, to your point, like adjusting to right-handed pitching and taking more walks and swinging less, and that's a positive to me, and I think that he's just going to continue to get better. I really do.
You're right. I'm going to side with you on this one. I think I mean,
you did say when I gave you my sleepers, you said you'd liked Renfroe.
Yeah,
he was on your list.
But Reyes I think is just interesting, and maybe someone for me just remember the name, and it's easy because it's a fun name. It's no Franchi.
Right.
It's no Franchi Cordero, but it's
but Garion probably someone who talking about name values. I know probably someone you'll get a little bit later on if Renfroe goes. Oh, this guy reaches on Renfroe in the power.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. But just gonna say, I think the Padres are in a transition period. I think they understand how many outfielders they have.
Yeah,
they can't trade Hosmer because no one wants that contract. No. Kind of feels like Will Myers.
Will Myers is going to get dealt again for like the 100th time.
Yeah. So. Remember Franmil Reyes when Will Myers inevitably gets traded this season. Okay, let's stick with the outfield for a little bit because there's another guy going right around Franmil Reyes, and this is the conversation I've been really looking forward to have the most. And I know you have too. Billy Hamilton.
Yes.
Not a good baseball player. Great fantasy player.
Not a good baseball player.
Like I think we've now gotten a large enough sample where we can just look at it and go, it's not coming. The contact numbers, like in fact, the swinging strike rate got worse last season. The contact rate got worse.
Yeah, just when you think it couldn't.
Yeah, I didn't think there was lower to go, but apparently we hit it. So he's a 1 category guy, maybe 2 at best, depending on where he gets put in that lineup. So, could maybe score 75, 80 runs, batting out of the 9 spot for the Royals, but that's a bad offensive lineup anyway.
Yeah.
But and also, it should be noted, someone we used to pencil in for 50 steals only stole 34 bases last season.
Yeah.
So that's bad when your 1 skill decreases by...
He's not getting on base. He's not having a 300 on base percentage.
So here's the thing, though, and we talk about it every year, stolen bases. Hard to find. Yeah. And we talked about this specifically in the ADP Top 20 show. So many of those guys who were like, oh, wow, Trevor Story's in the top 20 now. Stolen bases. All about stolen bases.
Yeah.
So I went through... Hamilton still finished 5th, I think, in baseball last season in stolen bases. If you go through the other 9 guys inside the top 10 last year, here are their ADPs by Fantrax. Whit Merrifield, 37.8. That's fine. Merrifield's actually a good hitter.
Yeah, he's a great hitter.
Trey Turner, 7.6. Yeah. 20 home runs, going to hit you 280.
Yeah.
We've all come to terms with Trey Turner as a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Then we've got Jose Ramirez, also very good. Starling Marte, 37.3. He's been drafted in that exact spot for a decade now. Mookie Betts, really good at baseball. 2nd overall pick.
Really good at baseball.
Lorenzo Cain, about 70th overall.
Yeah.
Then there's this really interesting tier. We've got Jonathan Villar, who's probably going to play every day for the Orioles this year.
Yeah.
Going at about pick 110. We've got Malik Smith going about pick 111. We've got D. Gordon going about pick 113. There's varying degrees of secondary stats here. We know D. Gordon can hit 300.
Yep.
Whether or not he's going to, I don't know. Malik Smith definitely has a more visible offensive repertoire than Billy Hamilton.
Yes.
I'm not going to sing the praises of Malik Smith.
No.
But I think he's a functional baseball hitter at the very least.
No power, speed, but average.
He hit 290 last season. Like you can live with that. His WRC plus was above league average. Jonathan Villar's got pop. So he can be the, especially in Camden.
He's great in Baltimore too.
He can be the 25, 30 stolen base guy, which is great.
Yeah.
So I can see why they're where they are, and Billy Hamilton is behind these guys. Mm-hmm. 222.
Exactly.
How is there that discrepancy?
I don't know. And this is why, and I know you and I have been on the same page. We've kind of chuckled. I have. Every time I saw Billy Hamilton, especially 2 years ago.
40th. He went 40th in the FSTA Experts draft.
I cringe
last year.
right now still.
Yeah.
It always blew my mind because I never ever thought he was a good hitter. I never thought he could get on base. He was a one category guy. Maybe, like you said, he was going to get you two. He was leading off.
Back when he was
this
leading
team.
off, you were like, you could kind of get it.
Maybe he can get on there and steal some bags and score some runs for you with some hitters behind. But I just always thought, why would I spend that pick on him when I can get somebody else a little bit later on? And this was VR too, a couple years ago, right? I mean, he had that nice season and we were paying a 3rd round pick for him because of some power there and some stolen bases. But I'm not going to spend that pick on Malik Smith when I can spend that pick on Billy Hamilton with my last pick of a draft.
Yeah.
It's just that makes too much sense to me.
So we did
I'm
talk
in
about this a
total
little
agreement.
bit.
I've never been on him.
Yeah.
But now I'm on
Yeah,
him
you have
because
to be.
I love the price.
I'm the same way. This is just a classic buy low situation. People have
Absolutely.
soured to him too much.
Yeah.
Now I will say, this is a situation where we've mentioned this on prior podcasts. Little bit of differing between the high volume, high stakes fantasy players at NFBC and the people at Fantrax.
Yeah.
Fantrax has them at 222.
They're not even interested in him on Fantrax.
Don't even seem to care. NFBC, he's 172, so 50 spots higher. So it does seem like people at NFBC are realizing the discrepancy between these two things, which makes sense.
Yeah.
This also goes back to a conversation I actually had about Jonathan VR last season with the aforementioned Rob Silver. And he brought up a really good point. And it's something that I think, it varies person to person, but it's all about how malleable your draft strategy can be and how good at drafting you are. Because a guy like Billy Hamilton, like if you take Hamilton, obviously he's not the only guy on your team who's going to steal bases, but it's going to affect what you're doing at other spots. Like you mentioned in the top 20 show, like if you're picking 4th, you can think about JD Martinez if you think you're going to get Billy Hamilton later.
Yeah.
That it makes up for the losses. The problem with Hamilton is if you get through 13 rounds of your draft and Merrifield's gone and Malik's is gone and VR is gone and Gordon's gone and Kane's gone, you've now wrapped up your entire draft strategy in having to get Billy Hamilton.
Yeah.
If someone snipes you,
you're screwed.
what are you going to do? Like what's your secondary strategy to find stolen bases now if someone doesn't get Billy? So his point was always just it's hard banking on definitely getting those steals in the 14th or 15th round because someone else might be thinking the way you're thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are thinking that way and you do have a couple guys in the first 3 rounds who don't steal bases, you're probably going to have to
150.
reach on Billy Hamilton.
But even at 150,
but that's fine.
That's
yeah,
fine.
you're still not reaching to a point where it's disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I think for where he's going in drafts, stolen bases sometimes pop up on the waiver wire here and there. You mentioned Merrifield. He popped up 2 years ago.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens from time to time. But yeah, if you miss out on some stolen bases early on, I think he's a great target for you later on in your draft. Again, somebody who's free.
Yeah. I mean, we can't overstate how valuable and what a premium stolen bases are this season. Like I think the best ADP to look at and just if you need a one-off, how do I understand how expensive stolen bases are this season? I know he had some pop last year, but just look at Mondesi, his ADP, and you're like,
I know.
I'm giving up a 3rd round pick for a guy who was minor league fodder.
And
2
I
years
think,
ago?
yeah, I know. And I think that's another example. I'm glad you brought him up. Is somebody I'm just not going to pay that price for.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm going to pay the price next year when he hits 250 this year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay that maybe 6th or 7th round pick for him. The stolen bases are legit. And maybe the power isn't. He's going to provide some.
He's got some pop.
It's got some pop, but it's a tough price to pay.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would just, again, my lasting advice, channeling my inner Rob Silver, I'm Rob Silver, would be if you're going to go after Billy Hamilton, if he's a big part of your strategy this season, be aggressive.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Because you have to get him.
Agreed.
So consider that. Let's talk about some middle infielders. 2 guys you have. Paul DeJong and Jonathan Schoop. We mentioned Schoop actually earlier when we were talking about Javi Baez. And I love Schoop this season.
I don't think you look at 2017, 25 homers, 105 RBI, 293 hitter. He's not that guy.
No.
He's not a 293 hitter. Let's just start there. He's not. But also, he's not a 240 hitter, I don't think. You know, and he 244 in 85 games with Baltimore, only 17 home runs. Now was showing signs, because I owned Schoop last year.
He was awful at the start.
He was
turning
brutal.
around,
He was a buy low candidate. A lot of Schoop questions like, I got them, I'm sure you got them. What's going to happen to Schoop? What do I do with Schoop? Should I trade him? It's like, no, don't trade him now. His lowest value. He's going to turn it around. He's going to turn it around. And he did. He was starting to show.
Just after the All-Star break?
Yes.
And it was right when they were like trading Meaney, and he was like kind of protesting that they were just going to sell everybody.
He was starting to show signs. He really was. He was somebody that I was playing on DraftKings a lot. His price was decreased, and it was somebody that I just bought into as a good hitter. Not going to steal you any bags. Got some pop. Going to rebound. It never really happened. When he went to Milwaukee, it just didn't happen.
Well, the plate appearances were just
the plate
sporadic.
appearances didn't happen. And for me, as a Schoop owner, I was excited. But then they started making all these other moves.
It's like, oh yeah, Mike Moustakas can play second.
Then they got
like,
Mike
what?
Moustakas, and then
he?
they moved Schoop around like second, short. He was moved around. Oh, he was DH, and not DH, and he was all around the diamond, not comfortable, not getting consistent. I don't even think there was a span where he had 3 consecutive games in Milwaukee.
I mean, again, doing stuff with the DK Live app, you really get very intertwined with like lineups.
Yeah.
And Milwaukee was one. It always popped up around like 4:30 in the afternoon. And it was always just like, okay, which 2 guys aren't playing tonight? Because there had to be 2 every night.
Moustakas was in and out of the lineup, or Shaw, or Schoop. So, you know, originally as a Schoop owner, Camden is obviously great. Moving to Milwaukee, I was like, oh, it's still decent, good lineup. I'm in on the turnaround here. And it just didn't happen. 46 games. He hit 202, 4 home runs. Again, no speed, but the fact that he's in Minnesota now with Dozier gone, he's going to play every day.
Yep.
He's going to play every day. They brought in Nelson Cruz. They bring in CJ Cron. I think it's an underrated lineup. There's some guys in there that could bounce back, whether we're going to believe in Byron Buxton or Miguel Sano or not. There is a little bit of promise of guys that can bounce back, so the lineup could be okay. I just think he's a good hitter, and it's a bounce back year for him and a buy low opportunity still. And somebody who I drafted Schoop last year, I'm not going to touch him. I'm not going to go down that route again. I think he's more maybe of a 260, 270 hitter, but somebody who can hit you 20, 25 home runs.
Yeah. And I think pairing him and you paired him with DeJong, and also just through sheer happenstance of ADP, they've seemed to find each other in this mini tier of middle infield. I would maybe take the Cardinal above him, just because I
agree.
They're very
actually
similar
right
guys.
side by side, 215, 216.
Exactly. So I think that they're both not going to steal you a base. So that's something that's a middle infield trait you're not going to get from either of these 2 guys. You're going to find it elsewhere. But both guys, I would say, if we're just playing like the averages game, probably if you gave me 10 seasons of work from each of them, it would average out to somewhere between a 255 batting average, 25 home runs, going to strike out about 25% of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
fine.
For DeJong, I'm with you. I'm more interested in him as well because I think he has more pop, and I think there's more upside.
He's less scary.
He is less scary. I have a couple concerns. Can't hit lefties.
No.
That's a little bit of a concern. You wonder if he's going to come out of the lineup here and there, maybe, but I still feel like he could get to 600 plate appearances, and we haven't seen that. In the 2 years, he got 933 total, 44 home runs. Rookie year, 25, dropped down to 19. Last year had the wrist injury.
Should be noted, too, he was exceptionally good defensively at shortstop.
That's
season,
a key.
which keeps you on the field.
That keeps you on the field. That's a positive. We don't want to take too much stock in RBIs, but he led all shortstops in the second half RBIs, 49. So he was productive in that lineup, which is good. Whether he hits in the 2 spot, which is possible, or a little bit later on down the lineup, 6.
Yeah, it really depends what they do. Like, what
they
do they do with
a lot of
Ozuna?
things.
What do they do with Goldschmidt?
Right, they could do a lot there. But
I'll say this right now, I expected a lot more from that lineup last year.
Absolutely.
I really liked the Cardinals lineup.
Yeah,
and
the one guy that was great was Carpenter, who was a little surprising that he had that type of season. I mean, he was leading for a while. He was leading baseball in home runs. But the fly ball percentage, 43%. which is 25th in baseball.
Hard contact rate.
Hard
pretty
contact rate is there. So he's had those numbers over the past couple, like 285 as a rookie and then 241 last year. I think he's somewhere in between that.
Yeah.
260. But again, hit lefties a little bit better. Like people will look at the splits and say, oh, it was under 200. Like for his career, 277. Like it was a bit of an improvement there. You mentioned the fielding. So somebody I think is going to get over 500 plate appearances. And I think that would be the first time in his career.
Yeah. But it's not like there's a huge
runs.
track record either.
No, there's not huge. He's got
2 years.
pop.
That's fine.
He's got power.
Yep.
Got a good fly ball rate.
Yeah.
Good lineup.
And like I said, I just think for two very similar players, I think the upside's a little higher. And I also think that, like I said, he's got a higher floor for me than Schoop. Because, you know, I talked about this a little bit with Baez, but Schoop and Baez in my head are just so tied together. And it's really a disservice to Javi Baez because he's so much better than Jonathan Schoop.
Yeah, he is.
But, I mean, you look at Scope's BABIP the last 2 seasons. So the year he hit 293, he hit a 330 BABIP. Last season he hits 233. It's because he's got a 261 BABIP. Mm-hmm. These harsh and massive swings in his numbers are because he takes harsh and massive swings. Like he and Baez last season, both top 5 and outside the strike zone swinging percentage, both top 6 in swinging strike rate. Like, these are high variance players. They're going to chase pitches. Yeah. They're going to take big cuts. And if they don't connect, they'll go through prolonged slumps. Now, Baez is better. That's why the slumps don't last as long and they don't seem as just the pits. Yeah. Scope's not a generational talent. No. Like, when he slumps, he's going to slump.
And that was evident.
And that was very evident last
very
season.
Evident
which is why last season, am I using a 60th pick on Jonathan Schoop after a career year? No.
No.
This season, 215? Sure. But just it so happens that DeJong's right behind him, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like him more.
And I agree. I kind of like him more as well. I mean, both guys, I think you can plug in at second short.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think this is a guy for DeJong in the 215 range. I think he's right around maybe second baseman 20, 22, 30 home runs. It's a possibility.
Yeah. I'll say just as like an amendment to this discussion, because we're talking about middle infielders right now, and this is generally the point in the draft where you're maybe not even looking for your starting second baseman or shortstop. You're looking for someone to fill that middle infield slot. Mm-hmm. One guy who just stood out to me, and this seems to happen with 1 or 2 veterans every single year, where for some reason we collectively just go like, he must be done.
Yeah.
Why is Jed Lowrie like pick 300?
Oh, I know. That's it. I understand that he had arguably a career year.
Yeah, I get that.
But he's a good hitter.
He's just been, like, it's funny. You look at the numbers, 2017, 2018. Here are his slash lines. 2017, 277, 360, 448. 2018, 267, 353, 448. Yeah, his WOBA was identical in those 2 seasons. Like,
I don't get it. I don't understand either. He's a free pick, and people are looking at regression, and they look at the age and they think, whatever, he's not going to be able to do that again. But
probably going to hit second for the Mets.
Hit second for the Mets is an improved lineup, and people I'd laugh at myself too when I'll listen back to this show and I'll say I called him a scrappy hitter. He's a tough out man.
Yeah,
he's patient at the plate. He takes his walks, doesn't strike out a ton.
Man, it takes a lot for me to compliment the Red Sox. If there's one thing that's brutally apparent year after year about Red Sox hitters, they don't swing at bad pitches.
No, he doesn't.
And they have the ability to foul off baseballs.
Yes.
They don't strike out.
No, he's a good hitter.
He's the closest, I'm not going to say he's the closest thing we have to Kevin Youkilis, but he's like of the Kevin Youkilis ilk, man. Like, these are the kind of hitters they create. And I just think, like, him going around pick 300.
That makes no sense to me.
288 Fantrax, 275 on NFBC. This was a fringe top 10 second baseman and third baseman last season.
All year.
Like, I'm guaranteeing you right now, if you're in a league and no one drafts Jed Lowrie, Jed Lowrie's going to be one of the first 3 names picked up off 100%. The waiver wire because he's so valuable. Yeah. Like, is he going to win you a championship? No. But he's part of a championship team. Like, he's just such a serviceable piece. And also, I say this knowing full well that Citi Field is not like an offensive haven. By Baseball Prospectus's handedness breakdowns, so they do home run factor and runs factor for right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters every park. Very similar to the Coliseum. But away from Oakland last season, his isolated power was 240. That was twice as high as it was in Oakland.
Yeah,
he's not playing in the Coliseum anymore.
Out of the Coliseum is huge for him. Yeah, when you sent me your list, actually, maybe that's why he's kind of just slipping by everybody and under the radar. I was like, wow, his ADP is in the 300s.
Well, I was almost like, I was scrolling through and I saw him there and I was like, that can't be right. Because I wasn't looking for Jed Lowrie. I figured he'd be in the top 200 and he was just kind of there.
Yeah,
so.
Again, serviceable, somebody who's not going to hurt you. And you're right, you nailed it on, a lot of people playing leagues with, the middle infield spot. It doesn't need to be your starting second baseman or in corner too.
Yeah, corner infield too.
You put
He's
him
got
wherever
so
you want
much
around
flexibility,
the diamond.
which is really, really nice. Let's talk about everyone's crush. It seems like every couple of years there's a player who just takes the fantasy Twitter too, baseball Twitter by storm. And last season, it was hard not to love Willians Astudillo.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a fun player.
He's so fun. Like he's everything about like South American baseball that you love. Like the pimping of the home runs.
Awesome.
Just he runs like Bartolo Colon.
They call him that Minnesota.
Yeah.
He was rounding. I think it was a triple last season where he was rounding the bases and they called him a little miniature Cologne. And I chuckled myself, but
man, he goes all out.
Looks like one a little bit.
He goes all out. And we've talked about this concept a lot over the last 5-6 years, but one thing that I would say sometimes we don't value this trait too much, but we detract from guys too much for the inverse. He's like the anti-Joey Votto, where everyone knocks Votto and sometimes even Bryce Harper for being too patient with runners in scoring position, for taking too many walks, because if I don't play in an OBP league, why do I care about these things?
Right.
This guy swings at everything. He might be the most aggressive player in all of baseball. Yeah. I guess the only concern would be, does he have everyday plate appearances? Because the Twins kind of bulked up their roster.
Yeah, and that is a concern. But one thing I noticed from him watching last year too is he played third base 6 times.
Yep, played some left field.
And he played some left field. He played some second. Played some catcher.
He played center once, I believe.
Yeah, and obviously DH. So I think they can move him around the diamond to get enough plate appearances from him. And one thing that he doesn't do? Does not strike out.
No.
He actually does not strike out. Listen to this. 286 plate appearances last season in AAA, 14 strikeouts. I know this is a small sample size in the majors, 97 plate appearances, 3 strikeouts. Yeah. 3 strikeouts. I know. Unbelievable for a guy who swings. Now, 355 average is completely unsustainable, but playing in Venezuela League, in the Winter League this season, and through his first 61 games, I know that's a different league, but again, did not strike out. 4 strikeouts in 61 games, 10 homers and a 325 average. So, and his minor league career average is 306. This is somebody who just does not strike out. And what happened? Like, okay, you're playing in a league with 11 different people, and you only have one catcher spot. You're not going to draft him. He's probably not on your radar. Why would he be? But there's so many leagues now that are going to 2-catcher leagues. You're talking about NFBC.
Oh, yeah, the 2-catcher league.
2-catcher league is where I'm interested in and intrigued with him, is because if you're going to draft somebody in the first 10 catchers, they're all the same, basically. They're going to give you a poor average, give you some pop. Here's somebody that is actually not going to hurt you and could maybe just stabilize. It's a good combo to have somebody with a poor average and somebody with a decent average, not going to strike out, get on base. I think that you combine those two and it's fine, because so many times for me, and I know you feel this way too, is you're putting in a second catcher that it's just he's hurting you.
Yeah. He's
going 1 for 4 every day with a couple strikeouts.
You sometimes contemplate not even picking up a second catcher.
You don't even want to plug him in because the strikeouts, especially in points league, this guy strikes out 3 times. Like, he's killing me. So this is a guy that I don't think is going to strike out. And honestly, you bring up the question about playing time, and I just feel like, and you know what? Some sneaky speed. He may even steal 10 bags for you. Yeah. I know he's big. I understand. But in the minors, he stole some bags. So I feel like in deeper leagues and 2-catcher leagues, and for the Twins, they're going to move him around a little bit. They're going to. I saw him a ground ball to third, bare hand, and just gun buddy out. He's pretty impressive for his stature.
He's sort of a Joey Gallo-esque in the sense that, like, everyone has this impression of Joey Gallo that he's like big Hulk, I smash home runs. But you watch Joey Gallo play center, you watch him play third, and you're like, oh, this guy's super athletic. Yeah. He just happens to be massive.
Yeah.
And Willians is he's a little like that. I guess, again, just to run through the concern would be, they added Nelson Cruz. You do that when you can.
That's the DH.
So there was a DH spot.
Yeah.
They add Jonathan Schoop, which, doesn't really affect him so much, but just another bat in that lineup, a guy who maybe takes a couple DH spots every now and again, can play some third base if you want to move Sano to DH for a game and stuff like that. They've got arguably their best hitter last season, Eddie Rosario, plays left field.
Yeah.
And you'd
Good.
have to figure he's going to be there most of the time. Yeah. Castro's the big hole. But at the same time,
it's Castro though.
He's such a good defensive catcher though. Yeah. And some organizations, like we haven't really seen this iteration of the Twins, so I can't say for certain.
Yeah.
But some managers just really value having like a solid defensive catcher behind the plate.
That is a key. That's something that benefits Castro 100%.
But I think you're right. I think if you're looking at this guy in the sense of in a 2-catcher league, or if injuries, create an opportunity.
It's more
for
of
him.
a 2-catcher league play. Like I was going to come here with your boy Danny Jansen.
I love Danny Jansen.
And now that's when I wrote him up, and it's the same thing on Fantrax. It was both of these guys. When I wrote him up, I remember the blurb. I need Russell Martin to go away, and he did.
Oh, man.
He went away, and now is somebody I think at that point was catcher 19, and I think Willians is like in the 20s. He's not even thought about in a lot of leagues. But now Danny is going to be.
Yeah, he's going to be a hot sleeper.
Like, can he be a top 10 catcher? I think he can be.
He's an offensive oriented catcher. I mean, stranger things have happened. It's not hard to be a top 10 catcher, man.
No,
it's
right,
it's a low bar to clear. To your point though, just because these are fun stats.
Yeah.
91.7% contact rate, 56.2% swing rate, and if you go down to 75 plate appearances, because he only had the 97 last season, among all major league hitters in 2018, he saw just 3.08 pitches per plate appearance. That was almost 0.2 of a pitch lower than any other player in baseball. And actually,
his numbers are so weird.
2 and 3, we know them well because they play for our particular teams. Yeah. Aledmus Diaz was number 2, swings at everything. Andrelton Simmons was number 3, swings at everything. So to be that much higher than both those guys, and then like Yuli Eski Guriel. There we go.
There you go.
Was 4th, and he came to America under the pretense of like this guy doesn't take walks and doesn't strike out. He swings at everything. So Astudillo seems like the extreme version of that.
Interesting name, very interesting numbers, some weird ones. Let's see if he. And that's the one problem too with catchers is once you get past the first the first few, and Yadier will probably go. I always pick Yadier because he's going to give me 500 and something plate appearances every year. Once you get past the other, it's like 300.
There was a stretch last year before he got hurt. I swear they caught him like 25 consecutive games. Yeah. What other catcher does that?
No, exactly.
It's nuts the level they use Molina. So you're right. From a volume perspective, Molina is always going to be kind of viable. Yeah. 2 more guys to talk about. I'm going to save my guy because it's a funny conversation, especially between you and me.
Yeah.
Tyler White. Let's talk about him quickly.
Yeah, sure.
So good in the second half. Huge pop. Plays in a very offensive-oriented stadium.
I wonder about playing time as well.
That's kind of concern. Like now, roster resource has him penciled in as DH.
Yeah.
You never really like to see a guy penciled in as DH.
No, you don't.
Because that could change quickly. Like, what if Correa needs some time off? What if they want to bring Altuve back slowly from this? So that's a little scary, but the pop is without a doubt. You can't question that. This guy's got raw power.
Yeah, he does. I mean, going 240 Fantrax. I mean, patient, throughout the minor league career as well. I mean, 26 home runs, AAA and majors last season, 12 of them in 237 plate appearances last year. But over his career, 580 plate appearances. He's got 23 home runs. The pop certainly it's legit. And, you're right. Maybe even Brantley's a guy that's gets some DH time as well as they want to try to keep him healthy. But I look at Yuli and you're right about, the playing time is going to be there for him, probably going to play first majority of the time. But I see him going ahead of White in drafts. But what's the excitement with Garion? I mean, 34 home runs over 1,200 plate appearances. Decent average, sure. Maybe get you some home runs, but
he's like a 290 hitter. It's not like he's going to change your life.
Yeah, I mean, White basically has as many home runs as him in half the plate appearances. So keep an eye on him. Not saying again, this goes to the first base position. If it's after the first few, it gets fairly weak. But in a deep league and corner infield spots, somebody that I'm definitely going to pay attention to in spring. And you know what? I just hope that he can get to 500 plate appearances. Because if he does, Garion, get to 500 plate appearances, 30 home runs is 100% a lock.
Well, it's funny you talk about home run locks. So I mentioned earlier that, not earlier this show, earlier in another show, just for people maybe confused by that statement. Last season, I wrote a bold predictions column. A couple worked out pretty well, like Jose Ramirez being the best player in fantasy. Couple didn't work out. And one in particular looked horrendous until, strangely enough, he got hurt and then came back. I'm not done on Randall Grichuk, man. I'm not done. I'm not done. And it's funny because, I mean, Grichuk's real claim to fame is that he will always be known as the player drafted directly after Mike Trout, but by the same team, your Los Angeles Angels.
Yes.
So I can remember there was a time, and it's even funny that we spent some time earlier today talking about Chris Bryant, because there was a point right when Grichuk got his shot with the Cardinals that I remember how excited you were, because his splits across the board were better than Chris Bryant's.
Yeah.
And it was, this guy has some serious pop. He just needs a chance. And that Cardinals outfield was always so crowded. Yeah. He had some injury issues. I know his shoulder was pretty bad. There was a point when he was playing the outfield but could not throw the ball in. Yeah. Which was weird.
Forgot about that.
So comes to Toronto. And I predicted he would hit 35 home runs for the Blue Jays. Almost made it. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy.
With a horrendous start.
Because he was hitting so far below the Mendoza line at the start of May. I think he had 3 home runs and he was hitting like 140 or something like that. Tears something in his knee, making like a really awkward diving catch on the turf. And he's out. And they call up Teoscar Hernandez, who clubs the ball for like 4 weeks. Yeah. And the fan base is already like, well, why do we need this Randall Grichuk guy? Just let Teoscar be the guy. And while I will admit, they're two very similar players, Grichuk's just a better player. Yeah. And Grichuk, when he came back on June 1st, 271, 319, 553, a 134 WRC plus, 282 isolated power, 44% fly ball rate, 51.3% pull rate. We've seen this many times in Toronto. Yeah. Fly ball hitters who pull the ball, who are right-handed, tend to do well at Rogers
Very
Center.
well.
He had 23 home runs in 385 plate appearances in that span of time. That's 1 home run for every 16.7 plate appearances. That would put him on pace for 39 home runs and 650 plate appearances. That's a better home run per plate appearance ratio than Giancarlo Stanton and Nolan Arenado had last season.
Unbelievable.
I know there's a lot of guys on Toronto's roster, so much so that they've paid other teams to take Troy Tulowitzki and Russell Martin from them. Yeah. I just feel like if he's healthy, he's going to play every day.
I agree.
And I think he's until Vladimir Guerrero Jr. comes up in May, because, he needs seasoning to get better. Obviously. I think Grichuk's going to hit like 3 or 4 in this lineup. Yeah. And it's not going to be a great lineup.
It's not going to be awful, though.
Premium lineup position, fantastic offensive ballpark, tons of raw power. And I really thought people would buy more into the second half, and it just seems like they haven't. He's still going 254 in NFBC drafts.
You know what? I think I don't think they realize the second half. I think they see the first half.
I don't blame him. It was tough to watch the Jays in the second half last year.
They see, also a couple people like, Grichuk, why is he still in this lineup? Why is he still in he's like hitting a $140, like you said, but deserves playing time. Yeah. The skill set is there. It really is. You mentioned some of his numbers. The fly ball rate obviously is phenomenal in that ballpark and inside that division too. I mean, he's going to play in a great division. There's some great hitter ballparks in there. I'm completely in on him too as well. I see 30 home run potential. I see a guy who can hit in that cleanup spot like you mentioned. And I see Guerrero coming into that lineup in 3 weeks. Yeah. Well, he missed the first
helping
3
out
weeks,
a little
whatever.
bit.
Helping out a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, at that price point, absolutely. And I don't think anybody will steal his playing time. I think he's locked into as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah. It seems like he's got right field on lock. Yeah. Left field's this sort of like Billy McKinney, Teoscar Hernandez mess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's set in stone.
I think he's
one of very few players on this roster. Yeah. He and Danny Jansen.
And I think he did enough in the second half for us to sit here and say that he's set in stone as a guy that's going to play every day.
He was last season, like coming into last season, he was a hyped guy. And a big reason for that was last year was like the barrels year. Everyone kind of figured out where they could find barrels on the internet. And they were like, oh, barrels, they're fun. And he was a barrels darling. I think he had the 6th best barrels per plate appearance rate in 2017. Didn't change last year. 9th in barrels per plate appearance at 9.5%. Just because it's poetic justice and a perfect way to wrap up the Randall Grichuk segment, do you know who that tied him with?
No.
Michael Trout.
I knew you were going to say that. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
How does that come full circle like that?
Just comes full circle.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go.
Lucky the Angels actually were able to take Trout with their next pick.
Yeah.
Because you can look back and say, Grichuk was the guy that they took over Trout.
That's tough.
It's tough. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks to the Yankees for taking, who was the first baseman they took from us?
Oh.
Who's in the broadcast booth now?
Yeah.
Looks like Buzz Lightyear. Reminds me of Buzz.
I don't remember his name, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is he slipping? He played for the Braves.
Oh my God. What's his name?
Anyways, that was the pick. The Yankees took him from the Angels and they acquired him from the Braves at the deadline. And we got their first round pick from him. It turned out to be him.
Oh, Tex.
Teixeira.
Yeah.
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 Mark Teixeira.
Well,
times.
On that note, we will wrap up this discussion on positional sleepers. Definitely some power in here. Some older guys.
Yeah, a lot of power.
Miggy and Billy Hamilton. I've often paired those two guys together. They're basically the same dude. So again, you can find all of Chris's work over at Fantrax, also at The Athletic. Anything to promote before we get out of here?
Yeah, again, you mentioned The Athletic. As I said on a couple other shows that we've done, there's going to be a fantasy baseball draft guide there this year. We just really have dipped into fantasy. The football wasn't a full season, and the hockey has been a full season of basketball. But baseball, we're loading up on a draft guide, and for Fantrax, a lot of my rankings will be on there, and sleepers and busts, all that good stuff. It is January after all, but we got some content, and it'll continue to grow. Well,
thanks so much for being on today, man.
It's been a blast to talk baseball.
Great information as always, and it was great to hang out with you guys today, talking some fantasy baseball. So again, if you want to check out the whole conversation we had today, which you can probably tell they were all shot in one day because we're wearing the same clothes. little trick of the trade for you guys there, but. Go to the DraftKings YouTube page. Check out the DK live feed. We're talking positional sleepers like we did today, but also pitching sleepers. Also top 20 ADP breakdown to really dip your toe into the 2019 fantasy baseball season. Also, aside from just liking this video, because obviously the content was fantastic, what you have to do is like this video, then in the comment section below, leave your DK handle and tell us who your favorite positional sleeper is for the upcoming fantasy baseball season. Doesn't even have to be one of the guys we talked about on the show today, but you do that, you're in a draw for $20 DK. So make sure you help out your own bankroll and do that, because it doesn't take any time at all to hit the like button and leave a comment. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank Chris Meaney one more time. I'm Garion Thorne, somehow host of the Pat Mayo Experience, and I'll see you guys next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!